President Obama called today for $1.5 trillion in new taxes to reduce the deficit. But the Republican leadership said, in effect, read their lips, and, well, you know the rest. With that, the campaign 2012 battle over taxes has begun. Our latest CBS News New York Times poll finds that most Americans agree with the president on one thing. When we asked whether budget deficit reduction should include both tax increases and spending cuts, overall 71% said yes, and among Republicans, 57% agreed. We have reports from Norah O'Donnell and Nancy Cordes. First, Norah, who is here in New York because the president will be visiting the UN a little bit later this week. Norah?
Scott, today we saw a very different President Obama in the Rose Garden, striking an impassioned populist tone and doubling down on his plan to cut the deficit by raising taxes on the wealthiest Americans. And he vehemently rejected Republican charges that his proposal fuels class warfare.
We can't just cut our way out of this hole. It's going to take a balanced approach.
President Obama today challenged Republicans in Congress to embrace a plan that does more than just cut spending.
It's only right that we ask everyone to pay their fair share.
By everyone, the president means the wealthiest Americans. Today, Mr. Obama outlined more than $3 trillion in additional deficit reduction over the next decade by proposing $1.1 trillion in savings from the drawdown of troops in Afghanistan and Iraq. $580 billion in mandatory spending cuts, including reforms to Medicare and Medicaid. And that $1.5 trillion in tax reform, including expiration of some of the Bush tax cuts and by closing loopholes and deductions for the wealthiest Americans. The president's most controversial suggestion, the so-called Buffett rule, named after billionaire investor Warren Buffett, who first suggested it. The idea is that people who make more than $1 million a year right now pay only 15% of their income if it comes from investments, which is much lower than most Americans pay on the income they get from their jobs.
I reject the idea that asking a hedge fund manager to pay the same tax rate as a plumber or a teacher is class warfare.
The president also threatened to veto anything that takes one dime from Medicare or Medicaid without asking the rich to pay their fair share. A message that was greeted with cheers by a Democratic base that has grown, Scott, disillusioned with the president.